And again, what to expect if you want me to tutor you or mentor you when it comes to programming, if you want to learn how to program like us. Let's take a look at what we call web API, right? I mean, you can do your own study as to what is web API, but I'm just going to tell you what web API is, right? So I have a project. Let me first get to run. Let's change the startup to be API, and we're going to fire it, right? We'll talk about it. So this little web application, it's so powerful. You see your phone right now. If you're on WhatsApp, it's connected, it's communicating with the web API, right? If you're on Facebook on your phone, it's connected and communicating to the web API. If you are using any app essentially on your phone, it's using some sort of a web service. We love to call them web service, but in a programming world, we call them web API, right? So what that means is that this is something, according to me and how I build my systems, this is the only thing that's allowed to talk to a database. This is the only thing that's allowed to make the further request to the database. It's essentially a middleman that protects the database, right? So for example, I'm running locally, as you saw, and then let me show you the Swagger, just the interface of how it looks like, right? So now, this is it. One of the things that you're going to learn is versioning your web service, aka web API. So there's a version 1, there's a version 2. You can version it without disturbing your customers connecting to it. And not just your apps on your phone, also the softwares that you're using on your laptop or your computer, they're somehow communicating to a web service somewhere. We call them servers. And also the IoT devices like these cameras that we see that are network powered, they are sending data somewhere, but mostly communicating to a back end that we like to call web API. So authentication and authorization in this case, it's a bit different. Let's look at the code. Let's go to program.cs. That's one of the first things that you need to say again. Use authentication, use authorization, right? So that's one of the things. And then after configuring that, using dependency injection, and then it doesn't have like MVC has. MVC has areas, identity, pages, account, stuff like login, logout, all of that, right? So but the web API functions differently, right? It's also using the MVVM in a way, but we like to call them contracts, right? If you go to contract, you see version 1. So there are requests and there are responses, and then this will be the route to it. For example, if I quickly go to login for version 1, and then I just want to say post. So anyone on the app right now, when they say this is the email and this is the password, it's going to go here, right? And then when you hit try out, you fill in this information, you hit execute. It's going to do a whole lot behind the scenes. And when you are done, if you want to say, for example, access the news feeds. The news feeds, for example, let me close this. The news feed, for example, right? It's protected. So the newsfeed is protected. That's authorization, because you can't send the request. Let me just do this. Let me show you, for example, you see, unauthorized 401. You cannot do this because it's protected resource, right? So what it does basically is that you need to authorize yourself. And the way you need to do is to obtain the API key. That's what authorize any request to say, listen, I am authenticated, but here's my authorization token or key. I want to access certain restricted resources. So these are the things I can teach you how to build and then how to go about them. Do you understand? So in a nutshell, that let's go quickly to controllers and look for the newsfeed version 1, general newsfeed. So this is what will protect it. This is the guy. It will always throw 401, and this is how you protect it. So these are the things I can teach you for 25 Rand on weekdays per session using Microsoft Teams from 8 p.m. until 9 p.m. I can teach you all this. Sounds good? Hit me up.